Gentlemen of the Bigs, it is Tuesday, October 1st. It's the final, well, we'll call it the penultimate show of the Bigs this year. And it's time to talk about the championship matchup. It's time to talk about the final week of the season. It's been a fantastic season. It's been a competitive season. And it's been a historic season for one manager. And that manager is indeed my co host, the man who has been on this show every week since about week 8. I certainly appreciate him being here every single week, and I'm incredibly happy for him. Benjamin Aloysius Nisman, the 2019 Bigs champion. How are you, sir?
Oh, man. I'm a lot better today. I really appreciate the introduction, Joe.
Benny, you earned this one, man.
Thank you very much,
Tell me
man.
how you're feeling. Tell me how you're feeling right now.
I can't completely describe it because it's so unexpected. I said something on the message board if you get a chance to read it, but I really tried to thank everybody as much as I could because it really is the competition that makes this a whole different level. You know, if you're playing in a fantasy league where guys don't check their teams and, you know, they're inactive by May, it's a different story. But when I have text messages and calls just, you know, reaching out to me throughout it, like it matters to them. Like what I'm doing every day, you know, look at my phone, my computer, whatever I'm doing, it matters to them too, you know. So I got to thank everybody so much for the support. My opponent, you know, it means so much because I think he's so amazing. You know, he's one of the best managers I've ever seen, you know, and he only gets better every year and he's a future champion for many, many years. I'm positive. So again, getting through you, Joe, one of the best, getting through Mike Haber, one of the best. It puts it on a completely different stratosphere for me. And I'm just so grateful for making something, you know, back in 2003 that was ultimately going to matter so much to so many people. And I'm grateful that I made it enough of a challenge for myself. There's plenty of corrupt commissioners out there, you know, that try to do things one side. But I really, every year, try to make this format better for the league, better for everyone, make it at the balance as competitive as possible and keep it as competitive as possible. So I'm overwhelmed with joy that, you know, I could really, you know, spend the time for 13 years in trying to make the league better, trying to make myself better as a fantasy owner, because at the end of the day, I want this more than anyone. And I want this league just as well to be as incredible for everybody. So that you and I are talking about it, it puts it on a completely different level. And the fact that we've been able to talk about it, just analyzing what everybody, I had no idea that I'd be in this spot talking to you right now, Joe. So it's overwhelming, to say the least.
Well, Benny, I think I speak for the vast majority of managers, if not everybody in the league, when I say congratulations. You earned this one by far and away. You know, I know I speak at least for James McCloskey when he and I talked about it this morning that, you know, if there's one team that grinded as hard as anybody else in this league this year, it was absolutely you. You put together an incredibly memorable team. You know, as far as the there isn't anybody in the lineup that is this big masher, this superstar that you expect to see. You know, you had a gutty, gritty, grinded out offense that was backed by a legendary bullpen and a strong enough set of a small set of starters that carried you as far as your managerial skills were able to do so, and that's all the way to the title this year. You know, so congratulations. Let's jump into this thing, Benji. Let's talk about this thing. Let's see how you did here. Because you take it down, you'd get a 13-7 win here in the final matchup. And the first thing I want to talk about before we dive into this is you and I were texting, you know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday about this matchup. And full transparency, I was also talking to Mike Haber about this. You know, when the Friday flip came, because you were in bad shape on Thursday. You were down 11-9 and you flipped it 12-7 on Friday. I texted Mike and I said, "How are you feeling right now, Mike?" And he goes, I had him right where I wanted him on Thursday, and he absolutely flipped it on its ear. And I think it's he was pretty scared. He was pretty scared, and I was texting you, and your concern was, well, I feel like I've held him for 6 days, on Saturday, but you were concerned you weren't going to be able to on Sunday. And I told you at that point I just didn't see it. Explain to me where you were going into Sunday up 11-9.
Well, here's full disclosure, man, right now, that there are things that brought me to the decisions that I ultimately made. And some of those decisions I'm going to reveal, and at least one of them I will not. Okay. Unfortunately, just because it is still a competition, there is a very specific reason certain things were done, and I hope you can appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I was very concerned because I know Mike. No matter what, you can never count this guy out. I don't know how many comebacks he had on Sunday. There were quite a few I remember talking about that, you just thought that Mike was done, and then he ends up winning the week somehow, at least 3 off the top of my head. So he had the 2 moves left. I had the 1. I was wondering how he was going to use it. And already in my eyes, having 1 more than me is a little bit of an advantage. At the same time, I knew that he had as many starters that he could, that if they throw gems, that even the ERA I felt, because I think I had about a 0.5 difference on him. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Okay. So about a half a run difference. 2 gems puts him no less on whip. He flips that one. He could flip ERA as well.
Yeah, I know whip was 1 point apart going into Sunday. It was
I had a 1 and he had a 1.01.
Uh-huh.
Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. So, and it was just about how many relievers I should throw in there to protect the category, that I was only up by 3. And my God, how crazy would it be if we were talking about me only getting second place this year because I finally lost in relief appearances. Mm-hmm. So I knew I was going to go for a reliever with my last move. I knew that. There was no doubt in my mind. I'll give that away right now. No question about it. I wanted to protect that stat.
And I don't think that surprises anybody. Like, it shouldn't surprise anybody.
No. I don't think so either. But, man, I have something I really want to say, but just remind me later at the end of this matchup.
Sure.
So, there were a couple of guys, and what's funny is everybody that I was looking at ended up coming in the game. Dylan Floro on the Dodgers was one of my options. Abreu on the Astros was one of my options. Chafin on the Diamondbacks was one of my options. I went to J.B. Wendelken, who I believe I take my do my taxes when my mom is too busy during the season.
Well done.
Thanks.
That's a good one.
I was trying. I kind of flubbed it, but it was close enough. Anyway, it works out. He gets exactly what I wanted him to do, which is just get it out. Because all I wanted was my relievers to just get in, do the job, get out of there as quickly as possible. My one miss here was Chapman, one that I just figured he's coming in, but he's a guy that could just lose the strike zone and possibly give up that bomb in Texas. So I just didn't want any part of it. He ends up throwing a perfect inning on my bench, but I felt like my instinct is pretty on point here, Joe. I didn't want to mess with Carrasco. I didn't want to mess with Tanaka. I understood it's an insured relief appearance, but I had the cojones to keep him on the bench because I just didn't know about him in a situation that I don't ever remember him ever being in. So why risk it? Mm-hmm. Let Mike try to catch me in relief appearances. I'll get the one guy that I believe in most. I have Oakland relief pitching up the wazoo. You think one's coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, you got
so that was like a little strategy that I had there, and mm-hmm. at the end, that was ultimately why I picked that Oakland pitcher. But all the same, it worked out with my relief pitching. They all pitched really well for me. Mm-hmm. And as far as the hitting, well, I guess that's a whole nother story.
Well, just to bring this all around here, you get 4 relief appearances, 3 clean innings, a win, a walk, and 2 strikeouts. The surprise there is the win from Ian Kennedy in a late game against the Minnesota Twins. To get that win, at the end of the day, you still lose wins, but it makes it a lot closer there. To pull this thing a little bit, the one thing I didn't do early here, close categories this week. You win by a triple, 2 steals, 2 strikeouts offensively, a loss, 0.06 on the whip. Mike wins by a win, and you guys tied in errors. When we look at your team here, you went 1 for 11 on the bench with a run, a walk, and 2 strikeouts, if I don't include what you did on Sunday, which benching all of your guys on Sunday was absolutely the right move. You went 5 for 26, that's a 192 batting average, 3 runs, an RBI, 2 steals, 4 walks, 9 strikeouts, and an error. You play all of those guys, you lose batting average, you definitely lose strikeouts, and you untie errors and lose that as well. So it's 3 categories that would have been either flipped or untied. And we're talking about, at that point, a 10-10 tie.
Okay, and then what happens if I play Tanaka, which normally I think anybody would do?
Well, then you get the loss from Tanaka, which ties that category, and now you're talking about 10-9 loss. Not to mention what it does to whip an ERA, because let's not even touch that. Just what we can look at with our own eyes without doing any math. If you play all of the guys that are in your lineup that day, you lose this championship, Benji. And we're having a different conversation.
I know, that's what it's all about, Joe. It's just the fact that I kind of feel like I can look at my peers, and I'll ask you straight up right now, and I'll ask some other people as well, but I know a lot of them would be dead honest with me and say they would have played everybody and they would have lost.
I probably would have done the same. Yeah. I mean, when maybe you don't play every guy on offense, maybe, and especially if it's me, I'm probably streaming a pitcher as my last move. I'm going with a starter as my last move, knowing that I have Tanaka as a guaranteed bulk reliever, hoping to get that win. And if I luck into another win there, then we're talking about a tied wins category, and that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, if you get that win.
If you get that win, right? You're asking for a lot.
Which is a big if.
Yeah, you're asking for a lot, and when you're up, what is technically 6, but it's 3 flipped categories. Like, you need to see Mike flip 3 on actually, we're only up 1, so a flipped category would have tied it, and he needed to beat you. Let's not forget that. You had the tiebreaker going into this. So even a 10-10 tie, you win the championship. I'll tell you right now, if it was me, I probably would have played this completely different than you, and probably would have lost this thing. So I give you all the credit in the world for playing it the way you did.
Dude, your honesty means so much to me right now, because I respect your analysis, I respect your play, your strategy, everything about what you bring to the league. So just saying that, I don't know how much, you can't believe how much it means. So I appreciate that a lot. Mike, when he texted me, he said, and I got emotional, man, because he said, "I'm so proud of you. You deserve it so much." Mm-hmm. And it's just, those words coming from that guy, it's just, that's what it's all about, man. Just the fact that, on Sunday, you have it right in your eyes. Like, you can either win this thing, you have the roster on your team to win this thing. How are you going to do it? Like, how do you put this thing together? And it kind of, every day it was like that. We could break down Monday, and then who won Monday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And every day had a different story of how we went to war that day. But just coming down to that last day and just knowing that I have this thing, I have it, but I gotta figure it out. I have to do the math, and I have to really delve into the reason why I'm doing every single thing I'll be doing. There has to be a reason for it. I can't walk away as 305 hits on the dot, and I regret that decision. I have to know exactly what I'm going to do, and I really did feel pretty damn confident. And unbelievably, I have had some poor managing weeks, and I've had some good managing weeks. But I do believe for this particular week, I may have managed the best of my fantasy career, and it was good timing, I guess.
Yeah, I have to give you all the credit. When you look at all of the moves that you made, whether it's picking up Avisail Garcia, who goes 1 for 3 with a double and an RBI on Monday, Teoscar Hernandez, who doesn't give you the performance you want, but it is a hit. It's 1 for 7. You pick up Miguel Rojas, who goes 2 for 4 with a run and an RBI. Those 3 pickups on Monday kind of set the tone for what your offense was going to be. And it's what it's been all season. Scrappy, doubles guys, get on base, score some runs, and keep the strikeout totals low. Because if you look at all of that, that is a 4 for 14. It's not a great average, but it's a double, it's 2 RBIs, it's a run, but it's only 1 strikeout in all of those, in those 3 moves.
Right.
You then add 4 straight relievers over the next 2 days. Butcher, Maeda, Kolarek, and Hunter Wood, and then add Adam Frazier there at the end of Thursday.
As well as
Zach Collins. Zach Collins, who goes 2 for 3, a run, a double, 2 RBIs, and a walk the day you pick him up. You just keep plugging in these guys that are producing the day you grab them. But where I was most impressed was in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, what you did with your pitching staff. Everybody in the league knows me at this point. I love streaming pitchers. But when I see something like this, with Urquidy, Matz, and Lopez, over the last 3 days actually, it was just Friday and Saturday. Urquidy goes 6 innings, gets the win, 2 strikeouts, nothing earned, an 0.67 whip. Steven Matz, who you didn't even start, but gave a really, really gutty performance for the Mets in the final start of the year for him. 6 innings, a win, 5 walks you don't like, but 7 strikeouts, a 1.17 whip. And then the big one, a guy you dropped on Monday and picked back up after having 2 terrible starts in our matchup on either side, and a guy who has been at best a 50-50 streaming option for anybody all year. You go back to the well with Ronaldo Lopez. 8 innings, a win, a solo homer, a walk, 9 strikeouts, a 1.13 ERA, an 0.75 whip on Saturday, gets you to the minimum, drops your ERA, drops your whip, giving up only 1 walk over 8 innings, giving up only 1 home run. That sets you, and that was I'll say it right now, that was the guttiest start of the year. Why Ronaldo Lopez? Why Jose Urquidy? And why not Steven Matz?
All right, fair. So I'll start with Friday.
Okay.
And I knew that I was in a little bit of trouble. But I also knew, just like Mike had said, it's all going to come down to the weekend anyway. I mean, we're just going to collect whatever we can. On Monday, I took a little risk using 3 moves on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the first day, but I didn't want to get too far behind offensively. And maybe I can fill up the offense Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, etc. So let me deal with today. Let me try to collect a couple stats. Fortunately, not too bad. Funny enough, after I dropped Teoscar Hernandez, I think he had at least 2 bombs. So, whatever. Regardless, going into Friday, I realized I got to get these innings. There's no chance, right? I had something like 12 to 15, maybe 18 innings going into Friday.
Yeah.
18 at most.
Yeah.
So I just figured, look, if I can get a couple of starters, just maybe 2 starters, maybe my bullpen can carry me the rest of the way. So let me try for this first one on Friday. I go with this Houston guy because the Angels, I don't know, at this point, there's only a couple of hitters that really scared me in the Angels lineup. I like the Houston's offense still. I like that this guy just got told that he's going to pitch in the divisional series. So I felt like he might showcase it. So I took a chance. That was very bold. On that same day, Joe, I am so tempted to go for any of the 3 other starters going on Friday. Do you know who they were? I'll tell you if you don't.
I do not.
Okay. One of them was a guy named Taylor Clark on the Diamondbacks.
Okay.
Justice Sheffield
Okay.
on the Mariners. And Johnny Cueto on the Giants against the Dodgers.
Okay.
I decided I'll look ahead on Saturday, see who's up there, and ultimately I decided not to touch him. Taylor Clark would have pitched well enough for me to feel good about using a move there. Even Justice Sheffield would have also, but I just didn't want to run out of moves on Friday. It was tough. It was a really, really tough decision. But at the end, I said, you know what? Screw it. I did all right. I feel like I won Friday. Let me move on and deal with Saturday when Saturday comes. I wait till 3 a.m. and I do pick up Steven Matz. Why? All right, I'll say it right now. I like the idea that I had 2 pitchers going against each other. So I could either, maybe one of them's awesome, and I can't get 2 losses in that matchup. I can't get 2 wins either, but at least I can't get 2 losses.
Right.
And I was up by 2 losses. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
At about, I don't know, maybe like 3:30 or so, I think that's when I made the final decision to go after Ronaldo Lopez. As I realized 4 bad starts in a row, can he really, really be that bad again? Can he really? Look, Joe, did I expect a gem like this? Of course not. I just expected some innings. That's all I wanted. I didn't expect him to toe the rubber in the 9th inning, which is what he did, by the way. And funny enough, it was Victor Reyes in the 9th inning, my guy, that got the hit and knocked him out of the game. Joe McEwen, called for it right there. But, hey, he pitched well enough to get himself out there. And once that I saw him in the 9th inning, because I was watching this game, I am like at the edge of my seat. Like, I cannot believe a complete game could happen right now. Could you imagine if that's the decider 7 years later? Unbelievable if that could happen. But fortunately enough, we don't have to even talk about it. Even still, this guy pitches his ass off for 8 innings because, I don't know, to me, I just felt law of averages were in his favor. He just played this team. Funny enough, the one home run was Miguel Cabrera. I was like, oh, okay, that's the guy I drafted, had for most of the year, burns me right now. It's 1 hit. It's not that big of a deal. Get it together. He got it together, Joe. And, maybe the most important stream of the season, very arguably, at least for me. And it was just, I guess it was just good foresight. And, I told my roommate I'm doing this, and he said, "Oh, I guess you don't really want to win the league," you know. And I think most people, when they saw that, scratched their head. But damn it, I had a feeling. I just had a gut feeling, and I went for it, and it worked out.
It was absolutely a gutty start, to see Miguel Cabrera hit that home run in the first inning off of Ronaldo Lopez. Must have sunk your heart for a minute there, going, "Oh no, here we go again." And
yeah,
you said it. He went the next 7 innings of shutout ball, damn near untouchable. He only gives up 5 hits across the whole game. Just a really, really gutsy start. And you hit the nail on the head. He was due. You talked about the 3 bad starts in a row he had against Kansas City, Minnesota, and Detroit, all of which were, 2 of those were between you and I think the Kansas City start was on my team as well.
Wow.
You know what happened before that?
A complete game to the Indians in Progressive Field, I believe.
Exactly. A complete game. So he has these flashes of brilliance. He has the ability to be a really good option when you can find the right matchup. And you have to feel good about him pitching at home against Detroit, whose offense is bad. You have to feel good about, him at least eating 4 innings. You have to feel good about that. The thing is, Benji, you needed every single one of these innings because once you get Ronaldo Lopez in and he gives you those 8 innings, you get to the minimum.
Well, actually, that was the earlier game, Joe. This is what happened. Ronaldo Lopez pitches the gem, and it's about a half hour before the Mets-Braves game is going to start. I'm locked in because you and I know that Pete Alonso is sitting at 52.
Right.
So here I am with these 2 starters against each other. I only need 4. I have exactly 33 innings. Oh, my God. Come on, man. And I really just sit them both and just hope that my bullpen can, and whatever move I make works out and I make the minimum that way. I can't do that. I got to start one of these guys. Mm-hmm. Do I start both? Hell no. Hell no, Joe. I understand that Matt's pitched well, but I don't know. As far as my gut instinct and what I've done in fantasy baseball, if you're this close to the minimum, why am I going to possibly blow walks, home runs, my ERA, whip? Everything's looking good right now. I just need some decent enough innings, and I think 1 out of 2 will get me the minimum. That's all I need. I just need the minimum. So I decided to sit one of them. Another thing that I'm not sure every single manager decides to do there. They're thinking, maybe another win here. Maybe another strikeout, like more strikeouts here. I mean, Matt did a pretty good job. His whip wasn't good, though, and he did walk a lot of guys. If he got the win, that would have been useful, but he probably blows my whip, and I'd probably lose walks somehow also. So I had to go with one of them, and I refused to decide on my bullpen for Sunday or using my last freaking pick on a starter. There's no way I was going to do that. I was making the minimum on Saturday through hell or high water. So it was very fortunate that I got to 37 on the nose going into Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at the track record of Matz and Foltynewicz going into this matchup, Matz is coming off of 2 awful starts in Colorado and then against Miami at home. 4 and 5 innings respectively, both losses, both 2 home runs, 7 combined strikeouts, and both with ERAs north of 10. So I can understand that benching, especially when you look at Foltynewicz's last 4 starts coming into this game, 5, 7, 6, and 8 innings respectively, all 4 wins, only 1 home run given up over those 4 starts, only 5 walks over those 4 starts, and only 2 earned runs in that time. So Foltynewicz had himself a September that made him pitch like an ace. He was absolutely the right call to make there. I can't blame you a single bit. Does it hurt that he gives up 2 home runs? Does it hurt that he takes the loss? Yeah. But at the end of the day, he still pitches to a 1 ERA. Or I'm sorry, a 1 whip. And that's really where it's at, because if you can split ERA and WHIP with Mike as close as it was, I find that to be a win in your favor.
Right, because that means that I'll at least take one of the swing stats. I don't want to lose all 4 swing stats or it's over. I know I'm losing on base percentage. I can hold on to ERA here. That's one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Batting average, it could go either way at this point.
Right.
But, like, my God, what can I do about WHIP right now? So, like, that was still in play. So I just had to hope for the best. I can't believe that it was so close, 1 to 1.01 going Sunday. I mean, so many stats were gettable. The score does not dictate how close this was and how much I was sweating throughout the whole weekend. I just put myself in a bubble.
Knowing that Mike is going to throw his big guns on Sunday, you know for a fact he has Flaherty, Soroka, and Bumgarner in his pocket for Sunday. These are you had to get to the minimum. You had to set the mark where it was. You get to the minimum, you set those benchmarks. You have to get under this in ERA, you have to get under this in WHIP, and you're not touching me in home runs and walks. Once that was set, you can kick back and make very simple decisions for Sunday. You can protect your relief appearances. You can protect against taking a loss.
I can, but I can't do both at the same time necessarily, Joe. Like, I can't. Like, when you say simply do this, I don't know if it was so simple. Because every reliever that I considered putting in, I was like, you could get the loss. Oh, you could get the loss. You could give up walks. You could give up home runs. How do I do this? How do I pick and choose which relievers are going in and which ones aren't? It wasn't so easy because I was up by 2 home runs given up at that point.
Yep.
I was up by 5 walks at that point. I was up by 1 loss at that point. So there was all these very, very small things that I thought, oh, geez, if this guy has a terrible outing right now, that's it. The season's over. Mm-hmm. One reliever could ruin my entire year. So, bottom line is the offensive decision. The decision to bench the entire offense was probably the decision. That and benching Tanaka and Carrasco, knowing they're probably coming in and them being bad. That and benching my entire offense is the moves that I'm most proud of. Maybe even more than Ronaldo Lopez. Because Ronaldo Lopez, fine, you want to give me all the credit in the world and say that was skill. There's no luck in that happening. Like, you knew it, you felt it, you got it. Mm-hmm. Even still, we can argue, all right, yeah, it's Saturday. You still have to win the damn thing on Sunday. And I think the most proud I could be was after seeing how bad Mike's offense was and knowing how confident I was in benching everybody. I'm sorry, I didn't have a doubt in my mind that that was my decision. I decided to do it 1 minute before the game started. I had 2 phones out, I had my computer, and I was going to do it all in the same time just to make sure that everyone sat down. And meanwhile, it would be too late for Mike to respond. He wouldn't know how to respond because he sort of needed offensive categories to try to pull back a little bit on strikeouts, but at least for 30 seconds or however much time, he would have to think. He'd have to think about what to do, and at that point, it might be too late. So that was my thought process, and I was so happy when I started seeing, like, oh my God, an 0 for 7, 0 for 8. Oh my God, strikeouts here and there. And then I had to start driving, and I tell you what, man, and now you know that I was asking you a lot of questions on Sunday, and I'm sure you were very confused, Joe. I'm sure you didn't really know why I couldn't, as I'm just asking you what's going on. And
I was rather surprised that, like, you were asking me, oh, how's this guy doing? Oh, how did this guy do? Like, what's going on there? Like,
okay.
I was shocked you weren't sitting in front of a computer watching baseball.
Sure. Okay. So listen, not only was I not doing that because it was Rosh Hashanah, it's one of the most high holy days of the year for me, and aside from that, I was driving at one point. The bottom line is, man, what you don't know, and what a lot of people don't know, is that about 3:40, and after this, at about 3:04, I'm benching everybody, and that was a moment there. But then at about like 3:40, 3:45, something like that, I pushed on that little icon, and I deleted the app because there's nothing else to do. It was just let it all happen. There's going to be 3 to 4 hours of baseball about to take place, and there's nothing else to do. So let's just let fate decide here. I'm going to go have some family time and see what happens. So I am sorry to bug you, but it was just something that I didn't feel like I wanted to say that I did at the time. Just a very personal moment of deleting the app and, putting it to bed, basically, and letting the whole thing unravel was pretty important to me. So sorry about asking about the update. I know it was confusing. I knew I was going to explain to you eventually when we got to the show. I didn't even talk to you about this on air. I waited till now. But it was just one of those things in that moment. I was like, you know what? Let me just, I don't want to keep excessively looking because that's the only thing I can do at this point. There's no more moves to make. All I can do is just obsessively stare at this thing, and I wasn't going to do that. I was going to just let it all happen, and I can enjoy myself and, let the chips lie where they do, and hopefully the best happens. And luckily, it worked out, man. It worked out.
That's an incredible story, Benji. That's amazing. It's amazing that you would have the discipline, first of all, to bench your entire team minutes before the first game started. To have this decision in your head and go, this is how I'm going to win this thing. To do that, to have that kind of I'm going to steal a Jewish word here. Help me out if I pronounce this incorrectly. The chutzpah.
Very good.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
Fantastic. To have that in you, to bench your entire offense, to go out and grab yourself a reliever and bench 2 guaranteed relief appearances, to bench arguably your best closer on this team, and then to say, you know what? I've done everything I can, and not even watch, because there's nothing left to do. When you add in the fact that it's an incredibly holy day for you, and it's a day that you want to spend with your family, to put all of that, everything that you've worked for the last 6 months, and just, for lack of a better term, throw it into the bin because it's over, and whatever happens, happens. That's a gutsy move, man, and I give you all of the credit in the world, all the credit in the world.
Thanks, man. Yeah, just there's certain things that just at some point, as you told me that I had 3 clean innings, and I was like, wow. If my pitchers didn't really fail, then I think this thing is done. And maybe it was done even way before that for you. But for me, that's when I consciously was like, wow, you told me my pitchers pitched well today. That's huge. And I had already known because my uncle called me and said, you flipped strikeouts. I was like, oh my God, that's enormous if I did that. Because even if I lose average, still, I was losing that going in the day anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So... what did Mike bat 3 for 24 on the final day?
He hit 120. He hit 120 on the final day, and I guess maybe that's a nice segue here. Let's talk about his team for this week.
Sounds good.
On the bench, he went 3 for 19. That's a 158 average. 2 runs, a homer, an RBI, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. None of it plays. Not a single bit of that plays at all. The one thing that I thought was really, really gutsy for him, and maybe it didn't really pay off the way he had anticipated, but Tuesday he threw out everybody he had in his arsenal against you, and then some on the pitching side. He goes 29 2/3 innings, but gives up 4 home runs, 10 walks, goes 0-2, gets 36 big strikeouts, and is kind of in the middle with everything. A 3.64 ERA, a 108 whip, and 4 relief appearances. Doesn't get a save. Doesn't get, doesn't get a win. Jack Flaherty gives him a great start. 7 innings, 11 strikeouts, only 2 walks, and an 0.43 whip. But this team loses. He streams, what was that, Homer Bailey? He went out and grabbed, who has been lights out for, a month now?
Yeah.
He's just been
Longer.
unbelievable. And he gives an okay start, 5 innings, does take the loss, no walks, no homers, 3 strikeouts, a 5.40 ERA, but a 160 whip. He was getting singled to death here. Aaron Nola does not give him a good start at all. And Madison Bumgarner was bad against Colorado at home. 3 home runs given up. You survive, and I mean, there's nothing you could have done to stop this. But you survive his best shot on the pitching side. And it's definitely something you can manage against.
Yeah, I took that same just wait and see approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's worked out for me the last couple of weeks. Sometimes it totally doesn't. It backfires because someone has just such a good ERA and there's nothing I can do when I have to play catch up the rest of the way.
Right.
But for the last 2 weeks at least, the wait and see seemed to work out. And I was fortunate on a couple of these bad starts because these are a couple of starters that have been great all year. So I was anticipating that I would have a lot more work to do. Fortunately, I had enough of a lead in things like walks, things like home runs, losses, that I felt a little bit more insured that I could take a little bit more of a risk. I mean, every risk is so risky because when you only have 13 moves and that's the end of your season,
Right.
you know, everything has to be so calculated. But I guess what I mean is just the fact that they didn't perform as well as they could have, I had a little more breathing room.
Yeah, I mean, this is much if I could say one thing, you know, I said last week that when we were discussing our matchup was that I was going to set the tone in our matchup, get out to the early lead in innings, and tell you what you had to do. You know, I was going to dictate how this matchup was. Mike did the same thing here. You know, with this 29 2/3 on Tuesday. You know, Monday was a really short day, so we can sort of take that and put it aside. Tuesday, he came out and set the tone. And for the most part, he had the lead going into and through Thursday. You know, it was close, but he had the lead. And I think this is the result. Like, that's the result of this. When you look at some of his other moves, he ended up picking up our favorite young man, Randy Dobnak, who I can't, you know, pick out of a police lineup. You know, grabbed Austin Hayes, who did well for him. Picked up Miles Straw, who went 3 for 6 with a walk. A guy that has won you a week this year. Picked up a couple of relievers to try to offset your relief moves and try to compete in that stat. But the big pickup for him was on Saturday when he went ahead and dropped Austin Hayes and picked up Ian Happ.
Oh my God.
And Ian Happ goes off 3 for 5, 2 homers, 2 runs, 4 RBIs. And at that point, you know, he's still ahead in average. He's still ahead in on-base percentage. You know, he's leading in walks. He's leading in homers. He's leading in RBIs. You have to start feeling like this offense is coming, and he's making the right moves to make it happen.
Yeah. And you got to know that when he picks up Ian Happ, I'm like, okay. And then he does that, and I'm like, okay, this guy's unbelievable. Mike Haber, you are unreal. You are unfreaking real that's what he did. That he had I mean, I'm sure he didn't expect 2 dingers, but I'm sure he just liked that matchup a lot, and him in that spot in the batting order, whoever was in front behind him, I don't know how he looked at that guy and said this was the guy, but when he does that and responds that way, oh my God, then I'm thinking, wow, what a war. This is like the 2 best guys at this moment doing what they do best, showcasing for everybody their best skills on how they're going to win a championship. That was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, Mike put together an incredible lineup. You know, we'll get to it here in a little bit when we get to key players, you know, where I think the lineup that he put together was, and I don't think I'm overstepping here, it was the better offense of the 2, despite the fact that you beat him this week. Offensively.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. No, mine is just a scrappy bunch that, you know, they could be considered in the late teens in the draft pick normally. You know, even next year you could, some of these guys. But no, Mike has a much more star power, Just like last week against you, you had much more star power. I didn't win with a good offense. I won, like you said, with good enough pitching and a good enough offense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He finishes out the week by dropping Edwin Encarnacion, who I guess they're getting healthy for the playoffs, and he goes with Eric Thames, who with the lack of Christian Yelich in the lineup, and the game being in Colorado as it is a smart move. I personally loved the move. I thought it was a great idea. Between Colorado, the lack of Yelich in the lineup, he's going to hit in the middle. He's right behind. He was going to hit right behind Keston Hiura, who was on fire this week, and he ends up giving him an 0-for-2, and then they pull him for Tyler Austin of former Yankee fame, and I think that's incredibly disappointing. I think Mike would have loved to see this guy finish out the game. It was a close game in Colorado that the Brewers ended up losing in extras. Like, the game goes 13 innings. I think if they play Eric Thames a little bit further, because Tyler Austin ends up getting 4 at-bats after coming into the game. So now you're talking Eric Thames gets 6 bats there. I think Mike would have loved to see that and hope that he could, get a couple of hits and get that average back up, because like you said, man, Sunday was a brutal day for him offensively. He hits 120 with a 241 on base. 7 strikeouts, only 2 runs, an RBI, and 4 walks. It was just a brutal, brutal day. And I think if he's honest with himself, his team really let him down offensively this week. Sure, the 14 homers and the 30 RBIs are great to see, but this isn't a team that hits 258. This isn't a team that only scores 26 runs and only has 7 doubles. This is a team that week in and week out was one of the best offenses in the league. And to see guys like Yordan Alvarez that we talked about was going to be a league winner. If he wins the league, that's the reason why. He hits 067 this week. 9 strikeouts. He goes to sleep. Didi Gregorius has a bad week. Paul DeJong has a bad week. This was a nightmare situation for him.
Yeah, no, and it even on Saturday he benches Paul DeJong. He gives him a dinger. Mm-hmm. I think that was a 1-for-4, so probably doesn't help him much in that average department. But at least the run there gets him a little closer. Mm-hmm. Maybe sways my. To be honest with you, though, man, no. I just on Sunday I can't. I wish I could explain the whole reason of why I was so sure, but it just I. It's not that I didn't thought that Mike's offense would perform. I didn't think he could hit 5 doubles. I didn't think he could hit 8 runs. Score 8 runs. I didn't think he could do all these things. I thought there was a better chance of him striking out. Jimmy Dunlap attempted this approach on Mike Haber no more than 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. Whatever, it was week 22.
Mm-hmm.
So in week 22, Jimmy's trying to go to the playoffs. He dares Mike's offense, and he benches his offense against Mike, and Mike says, okay, my offense is amazing, and it's going to do that to you and knock you out of the playoffs. And that's just what happened.
Yeah.
Funny enough, week 25, I'm in a very similar, not the same, I'm in a similar position as Jimmy, and I do the same thing, the same strategy, and, I take my time, as much time, and then, bam, I went with it. It worked out, man. And I was thrilled to see everything unfold the way it did, because it's just, that's when you're like, you know what, I'm a fantasy man. I'm at this point that and this goes for a lot of us guys, that if we were in your typical 5x5 league, 12 teams, we're winning most of those leagues. Or maybe we're coming in second because of some luck, some unfortunate things that happen. But we school most of our fantasy leagues now because of how experienced and how good and how trained we are because of who we're competing against and the format that we have. We went into our 5x5 leagues, Joe. We'd be like, okay, now these guys that usually suck because they strike out a lot, I still want them because they hit home runs. Mm-hmm. So there are guys that we would normally just ignore that we find so much value in our league. We wouldn't care about in those leagues, and we would just stomp everyone. Mm-hmm. It would be a joke. But when I make a move like that on Sunday, I make that decision, this so well thought out, calculated, confident decision that I made in benching my hitters, and everything works out. You theoretically give yourself a pat on the back because you know that everything you've done that got you to this point, 13 years, that's how long it's been. But I mean, we've been doing this even longer, and now you're at this point where, I've seen so much happen through the years. I've seen myself, doing this, and making so many mistakes in the past, and just, learning from your mistakes, reevaluating, applying what you've learned. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the 5x5 leagues. I'll tell you off air. I don't want to bog down the the championship celebration here with my bullshit. Let's jump to key players here, Benji, because this was an incredible week, man. This was an incredible week for you. Your key players this week. Let's talk about Trey Turner, man. The trade that you make, sending Raisel Iglesias away to get this kid, and for all intents and purposes, this kid helped win you the championship this week. 370 average, 393 on base, 7 runs, 4 doubles, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, a walk, and 7 strikeouts. He scored you all those runs, got you a ton of doubles. That you win doubles by 5, you win runs by 6, and this kid is absolutely the catalyst. Tell me why Trey Turner this year. Tell me why you were targeting him. I know he wasn't the only target for you at that position, but why you ultimately decided on him?
I guess I wanted to add some potential speed to the team, and I knew it was a good lineup in general there in Washington, D.C., and I liked the fact that he was just coming back from an injury that was like kind of a freak injury. So, okay, now I know he's healthy. He's going to be on the field for a while. I can feel pretty optimistic that he'll at least get regular at-bats in the leadoff spot for a good team. That's really just what it came down to. It's not a guy that I necessarily said, this is a superstar type of player, even though he's really presented himself as a first-rounder type of guy in other years, because he kind of came, he jumped on the map and then he just exploded. And I'm one of those guys that's pretty resistant to that. I'm pretty reluctant to all of a sudden think that the guy can continue it. So a little against what my my usual gut is, but I just like the fact that he's a leadoff hitter. He's got some speed. He can clearly hit, and he's on a good team.
We'll jump to your next player here, your 20th round pick. And I don't know what it is about the 20th round, but there are some picks in the past that have come out of the 20th round that were absolute league winners. Here's Trey Mancini for you. 429 average, 556 on base percentage, 5 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs, 6 walks, and 4 strikeouts. The 6 walks are huge. The doubles are huge, but the runs are where it's at here because you won that stat so convincingly. And finally, maybe the free agent pickup of your season. You picked him up all the way back on May the 30th, have not dropped him since, and been hanging on to him. He's given you an incredible second base play. It's Kevin Newman. 273 average, 333 on base, 4 runs, a triple, and the only one of the matchup, with 2 homers, 5 RBIs, a steal, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. You win steals. You win triple. You win runs scored again. This is absolutely the exact prototypical Ben Nisman player this year is Kevin Newman and this type of week. It's not a great average. It's not a tremendous on-base percentage, but it's enough. It's exactly what you need. Tell me about Kevin Newman.
Well, like you said, man, it was just kind of grabbed him off the scrap heap when I did. I liked hearing that date that I got him at. All he did this year is bat .308. When you mentioned the average on base, you were talking about this particular week. Just wanted to clarify.
Yes.
273 though, solid enough for the week. Mm-hmm. Look, man, it's a guy I stuck with because he made it so I couldn't drop him. He was just so consistent. He'd have only an over day, maybe once, twice in a row. No more than that. He almost never slumped. So when I decided to name my team after him in week 19, I believe it was, or week 19, going into the Ari matchup.
Right.
That's when I did it. After the week 18, I remember we did the review, and then you asked me, who is that? And I said, it's the Big Show.
Nice.
And it's Cesaro and Sheamus pointing to him. Probably
Nice.
no one can see it on their apps because it's so small, but that's actually a very big man.
That is a very, very big man.
Did what I needed him to do this week with the triple was enormous, and then a stolen base here and there. Grabbed the one from Adam Frazier as well with that pickup.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to ignore one key player here. I think it's pretty important, and that's Miguel Rojas, who does get an error, but that's 348, a 375 on base, 4 runs. 4 runs, Joe.
Yep.
And a steal.
And a steal. Both categories that you win. And the
Right.
average, you hit it. 348 average. That absolutely ups your average just enough to get to that 269 mark that you win with.
Right, and when I pick him up on Monday, I'm thinking this is an interesting story I'm having with this guy. I mean, we talked about last week, right? Because I pick him up on Sunday for Monday. He goes 0 for 5. I sit him against you on Tuesday. Oh, that's when he goes 4 for 6, 3 doubles, 6 RBIs. Then I play him on Wednesday. All he does is go 0 for 5 again.
Yep.
So now he's 0 for 10 on my team. What's up with this guy? Get him off my team.
Right.
Then I pick him back up on Monday and be like, this is an interesting part of the story. He needs to be involved here. He has to.
Mm-hmm.
So I pick him up on Monday, and I stick by him, man. And, the error was costly because we tied that category, but the steal made some separation. The 4 runs gives me some separation to make my decision on Sunday easier. I mean, it's unbelievable what this pickup did. I mean, he was great for you also, but completely inconsistent, but a huge part of the story that I'll never forget. And it's just funny, things like Avisail Garcia, he was on my team when I drafted him.
Yep.
And then I pick him back up for the last week. I drafted Steven Matz. I don't use him, but it's funny that he ends up on my roster at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. Cool shit like that just kept happening, man.
Yeah. I want to quote Mike Haber here because, again, I was talking to both of you guys on Saturday. I was asking him how he was feeling, about 5:30 my time, 8:30 on the East Coast. And I was asking him, how do you feel about this? And are you going to be able to make this happen? We were talking about, what he was going to do on Sunday to with his final couple of moves. And he goes, hopefully the Mets can scratch out 3 more runs off of Fulte and I'd be right back in it. He goes, but you must feel the same way. I'm totally sick of this team. Enough of Miguel Rojas, enough of Kevin Newman. And you know what I responded with, Ben? Who the fuck is Victor Reyes? Like, where did this kid come from? He's another he fits this team. 286 average, 318 on base percentage this week, a double, 2 RBIs, a steal, a walk, and 4 strikeouts. It's just enough. And if you put together this many guys who are going to put together a similar stat line just to get enough, it's annoying when you see that. And I'm not discrediting what you've done here. I'm actually giving you a ton of credit for putting together this scrappy a lineup to take down a championship, man. Like, nobody, very, very few people were going. Look, Victor Reyes is probably a 5th outfielder on a lot of other teams in this league. Kevin Newman, yeah, maybe he's somebody's starting second baseman, but in all likelihood, he's probably a utility infielder that fills in. Guys like Adam Frazier, guys like Miguel Rojas. Miguel Rojas was my utility infielder for a period of time. You took these guys who were producing, but were producing on the ends of some guys' teams and created a championship team out of them.
Yeah. I was able to win in spite of a terrible week from Joey Votto.
Yeah.
All he did was bat 118 and struck out 8 times. But he grabbed me that double, didn't he? Like, that at least gave me some separation.
Yeah. And look, Joey Votto, I don't think he was what you wanted him to be this year by any stretch.
No.
You know, coming off of a really down year in the power department, 12 homers and 67 RBIs last year, he doesn't improve at all in that situation. He actually plummets in other things that you expected him to do well in. The batting average and the on-base percentage.
Right.
He just had a really terrible year, and yet I know you could not possibly give up on him.
No.
And,
no.
When you look back on this season and you look at a guy like Trey Mancini and a guy like, Carlos Santana all year, these are the type of guys that you hit on where you missed on Joey Votto.
Right. But like you said, I wouldn't feel right giving up on someone that's been so consistent and then can give me the categories that I needed at the right time. Now, this week, notwithstanding, because he went 2 for 17 this week, so he was awful. But at the same time, he was huge last week. The combo of Votto and Carlos Santana worked out.
Mm-hmm.
It did what it was supposed to do. It didn't do it this week. Both those guys were bad, but that's what the managing is all about, to win in spite of the guys that have been making it happen for you. Try to figure out another way. Get the stats another way. You got the 13 ads. How are you going to use them here? How are you going to figure out a way to get this stat or that stat or protect this stat or that stat? There has to be a way. No matter what, I absolutely knew, and I knew that Mike knew, that a championship is on our rosters and in free agency. Mm-hmm. With what's out there, unfortunately, I really appreciate that you and Jason were cool with asking me to lock the teams, because it really did make it a great playing field. I mean, there was just so many free agents, so many starters every day, that there was just so many options. It's almost like, man, there are almost too many options. Mm-hmm. And we're two guys, and even at this point in the season, when guys are hurt, or guys are getting shut down, there was still plenty of options, and it was just like, well, you know what? You can just as easily pick up something that hurts you, that helps you.
Yeah.
So you got to make it count. Like, you got to make it work somehow. So that's what it was all about there, and I feel so lucky that it all fell into place.
Yeah. Your hero from last week, Shed Long, also shit the bed for you, but we won't.
No doubt.
We won't harp on that for too long. Moving on to your pitchers, and we talked about Ronaldo Lopez. It's not to be understated. The balls it took to start him after what he was coming off of in the championship on Saturday. All the credit in the world. Jose Urquidy was another really great, insightful start. And finally, I'm going to give credit to Kenley Jansen. He led your team in relief appearances. He got you 3 saves, clean innings, and 0.67 whip. This guy, along with Chapman, anchored your bullpen all season. And, he's definitely a solid part of the reason that you're sitting here as the champion. We'll move on to Mike's team real quick here. Mookie Betts gave him a great week. Finally, 429 average, 500 on base, 3 runs, a homer, 2 RBIs, a steal, 2 walks, and a strikeout. When you look at Mookie Betts as the number 2 overall pick, he didn't have a bad season. 295 average, 29 homers, 80 RBIs, 135 runs scored. I just don't think that this was the season you envisioned, though, when you were picking him with the 2nd overall pick. I don't know if it's just me, but I would have expected more. Maybe you're not going to see him hit nearly 350, but 310, 315? I expected more RBIs, more akin to the 16 and 17 season where he had over 100 RBIs, not matching the 80 from last year. Did up his walk total. His on-base percentage was near 400, obviously down from last year, but that has more to do with the fact that, his batting average was 50 points lower and was still 295. I don't know. How do you feel about Mookie Betts as the number 2 overall pick? Do you think it was actually a disappointment, or am I just sort of splitting hairs here?
Well, here's what I'll say. If you want to say that you were expecting more from him as far as what you think he's going to bring to the table, sure, but at the same time, he didn't have a bad week for Mike.
No.
and he got him all the way to this point. So, like, I do think it's perfect. Like, it's a perfect pick there.
Okay.
Because he did what he was supposed to do. He's not the reason why Mike, didn't pull it off here.
True. Jock Peterson is absolutely a reason he was in this thing. 357 average, 412 on base percentage, 5 runs, 4 homers, 6 RBIs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, and an error. A former member of the walked out of Newmans, if I'm correct, Jock Peterson.
Well, man, it's just like if Mike ends up winning this thing, we are talking a lot about Jock Peterson because I dropped him in week 5, and he was having a pretty good year. And I'm hoping that maybe by the end of the show, Joe, you can pull out what happened that Sunday against Mike Sherman. And I needed to do it. I remember I picked up Chris Taylor and Steve Duggar, and I dropped Jock Peterson and someone else. But it ends up giving me about 3 or 4 stats by doing it. And throughout the entire season, I'm like, wow, this guy is having a great season on Mike's team, and I could have still had him. But you know what? I'm in a great position here. Like, I'm having a great season, even with that happening. It sucks to see it. Oh, now he gets first base eligibility. Oh, great. Like, he's even having a more amazing season than I expected. He's gone over 30 home runs, 100 RBI, blah, blah, blah. This is terrific. Great. But I'm still in a good spot here. I'm still in the final. Now I'm facing him in the final. How fitting would it be if this guy kicks my ass in the final? We're going to talk a long time about Jock Peterson.
Yeah.
About how this is a guy that's on my team, and I gave up on him too quickly. Maybe I would have gotten into the playoffs anyway that week against Mike Sherman and didn't need to drop him, and I could have lost that week against Mike and not taken Chris Taylor. But here I am now, and this guy is having a week against me, wearing me the hell out, and I'm just, holy cow. It almost, after it was over, man, I thought about Justin Turner on the Dodgers against the Mets in that divisional series in 2015, about how this guy was wearing us out so badly. That's kind of how I felt. And it was just like, we got through that round. We don't have to see this guy anymore.
Yeah. No, I completely understand the comparison there. I actually already have Sunday against Mike Sherman in week 5 up for you. You ended up taking a 15-3 win there. Steven Duggar went 1 for 3 with a run and a strikeout that day. Chris Taylor looks like 3 for 4, a double, a homer, 2 RBIs, a run scored. And you're dropping Jock Peterson for it. Did not have a good pitching day. It looks like Iglesias and Jansen took losses
but
that
it's
day.
just about what Taylor was able to do to flip some categories there.
He did give you the 2 RBIs to flip that. Gave you the home run to tie that category. Helped you win the runs category and the doubles category.
Right. So that's 4 that you just said, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, if you don't win this 15-3 and say, okay, those 4 go the other way and it's 12-7, you still make the playoffs, but it's a completely different...
No, but wait a minute. But
it's
that
a
just
completely
changes
different...
everything for the rest of the year.
No, and it's exactly what I was going to say. It changes everything when you look at, seeding and where you would have stacked up in the playoffs. Maybe at that point you're the 2 seed, and instead of facing me in the second round, you're facing Jason.
But I'm not ready to say that I definitely would have made the playoffs if I end up taking a different, because maybe my decisions go in a different direction. Maybe I give up on certain guys. Maybe I go on a 6-game losing streak.
With Jock Peterson in that lineup, maybe you don't have the flexibility. Maybe you're sticking that guy in center field or right field or wherever for the whole year.
No, but what I'm saying is that even let's say I take a 12-7 loss and I drop him anyway, and it doesn't work out with Chris Taylor. Maybe that day, and it was just a wasted couple of moves. I'm just saying, like, I don't necessarily think I'm making the playoffs anyway, because maybe now I'm in panic mode. Because Joe, one thing that we forgot to talk about in this team, and something that's really special that I'm always going to remember about this team, is that I started 15 games under 500. I took an 11-7 loss to Bobby, and I took a 15-4 loss to you in week 2. So there I am in week 3, 15 under 500, an atrocious way to start the season. You think I would have said that this is the team that's going to win a championship?
Yep. It was a really rough start for you. That's for damn sure. And yeah, sure you rattled off the winning streak, but maybe the Jock Peterson drop was part of that, and it obviously had to be.
Yes.
You know, in order to start that, or to, because that was just in the infancy of that winning streak, right?
Yes.
You know,
yes.
so
That was. I mean, I had finally gotten on the win column against Jason Ashby. I had tied Ari, and then off we went. After that dropping of Jock Peterson, off we went there, and we rolled on.
Yeah. Finally, back to the key players of this matchup.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Ian Happ, obviously, we talked about earlier, 429, 500 with 2 runs, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, a walk, and 2 strikeouts. Pitching-wise for Mike, man, Jack Flaherty is an ace. I mean, I could see this dude being a second-round pick next year. 14 innings, a win, 17 strikeouts, 3 walks, and an 0.43 whip for the week. That guy is lights out. He is the next in that, line of succession for the Cardinals, from Chris Carpenter to Adam Wainwright to this guy. And I'm sure I'm missing somebody in there, maybe Matt Morris or
yeah, great name.
Any one of. But I mean, if you look back on these great Cardinal teams for the last 20 years, there's always a really top end, not necessarily the best starter in baseball, but definitely a lockdown starter at the front end of that rotation.
A front end real number one.
Real ace, an absolute real ace. And this is the next in line. Just a great story. And this kid is young, man. This kid is real young. He's 24. He's 24 years old. Randy Dobnak, the child on the sidewalk who I would never be able to recognize. And ironically, he's got like this gray picture as his picture on Yahoo, because they don't have a photo for him. So now I have to go to Google and see what this child looks like. Oh my God, he's got a... Okay. He looks like what would happen if Rod Beck lost 100 pounds. The full Fu Manchu mustache. Like, it's funny. It's funny. But you know what? He did well for me last week, and he does well for Mike here. 6 innings, a win, 6 strikeouts, nothing earned, an 0.17 whip. I wonder if this kid is going to be on their postseason roster, and I wonder if this kid's even going to get a start. I would love to watch this kid. If for nothing else, the laughable nature of him being skinny Rod Beck. Finally, Madison Bumgarner, 7 innings, 9 strikeouts. He didn't have the greatest of starts, giving up, 3 homers and 2 walks. But what I'm highlighting there is the fact that he got a win. Did he get the win? No. By the innings, the strikeouts, those are the 2 things that Mike really, really took you to task there. So there's that. Let's put a bow on Mike's season here. Tell me about his head-to-head matchups, and we'll go over his draft.
Sure. Well, with runs, some of these are actually kind of surprising. Didn't matter. You know what? When I look at these things, and they do matter, but at the same time, I always consider the fact that you sometimes decide to surrender certain categories to ensure others. But anyway, 11 and 10 in runs with 3 ties, 12 and 11 in doubles with 1 tie, 6 and 11 in triples, 12 and 10 in home runs, 15 and 8 in RBIs, 3 and 12 with 9 ties and stolen bases, 14 and 7 with 3 walks, 9 and 15 in strikeouts, 10 and 10 in errors with 4 ties, 14 and 10 in batting average, and 15 and 9 in on-base percentage.
I'm shocked at how little speed he had on this lineup.
Mm-hmm.
The steals and the triples is pretty surprising. But, average on-base percentage and walks are right in line with where you would think they would be. The strikeouts is kind of surprising. Stayed 500 in errors and doubles and runs. Like, that's all relatively 500.
Did you think he would be better than 12 and 10 in home runs? That one surprised me.
Yeah, but the RBIs is really good.
Right.
So,
right.
What about his pitching side?
Also, 11 and 10 in runs, just like little things like that. I was like,
yeah.
Okay, 17 and 7 in innings pitched, 11 and 6 in wins with 7 ties, 11 and 12 in losses. He was under 500 there. 1 and 4 in complete games. 12 and 10 with 2 ties and saves. Home runs given up, 11 and 10 with 3 ties. Walks given up, 13 and 9 with 2 ties. Ks, 16 and 7. ERA, 15 and 9. WHIP, 16 and 8. Relief appearances, 16 and 8.
This pitching staff carried him.
Yeah.
And that's not to poo-poo his offense. His offense was very good. But, the innings, the walks, the strikeouts, the ERA, the WHIP, and the relief appearances, that's where his, championship run was at. And, an absolute, really, really solid pitching staff.
Oh, my God. I mean, he was second in the league in ERA with a 3.72 ERA. The next was Chris Levy with 3.93. So he's 20 points ahead of him. And and you have to consider there are probably plenty of times where he said, screw ERA. I'm just going to pile on innings, strikeouts, and the ERA would probably go up and up and up. Mm-hmm. But even with all that being said, a 3.72 after 25 weeks, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is a fantastic ERA for the season. Looking at his draft here, again, we talked about Mookie Betts being the number 2 overall pick. He comes back around the second round and picks up Aaron Nola to pair with him. And I think if we're honest, Aaron Nola in the second round, coming into the season, was an absolutely amazing pick, right? The guy is coming off of a great year, and he was very slow to start, and he ends up with an ERA just south of 4. Does have over 200 strikeouts. You got what you wanted out of this guy. I just think you would have expected more. But he ends up making up for it later on in a couple of rounds, and we'll get to that in a minute. The third round, he comes back around and takes a Ben Nisman favorite, Chris Davis. Disappointing season from him. But when you look at the next 2 rounds, man, this is where championships are made. Eugenio Suarez, who has like 45 homers, and Jack Flaherty in round 5. That's absolutely second and third round value right there. Where maybe he missed a little bit on Nola, he hit a jackpot on Flaherty, and those 2 at the top of his rotation really carried him this year. He comes back around and adds Justin Turner and Madison Bumgarner in 6 and 7. So Bumgarner ends up being his third starting pitcher. And when you anchor your staff with those 3 guys, you're going to go a long way as long as all 3 stay healthy and perform, and they did. 8th round is Aaron Hicks. 9th round is Edwin Encarnacion. So though he wasn't a Yankee at the time, he ends up having back-to-back Yankees here. EE was going to be the Nelson Cruz of the Seattle lineup this year. He does miss on Arodys Vizcaíno in the 10th round. But does hit very well with Will Smith in the 11th. That was probably going to be his 2 closers. Vizcaíno gets hurt and is gone. And Will Smith, is absolutely a solid closer at the back end of San Francisco. Another Ben Nisman favorite, Cesar Hernandez in the 12th round, paired with Paul DeJong, who was red hot early in the season and had a very good season here, picked up in the 13th round. 30 homer season, 78 RBIs, 97 runs scored in the middle of the Cardinals lineup. We come back around, pick up Trevor May, who was in the bullpen talk for the Minnesota Twins. Matt Barnes, another guy who was in the talks with the Boston Red Sox closer situation. A spring favorite, Garrett Hampson, in the 16th round. Wellington Castillo, who lost his job very early to a guy that Mike ended up getting in James McCann in the 17th round. 18th round was Derek Rodriguez. That's kind of a stinker. Ian Happ, The guy who damn near won him the championship as a free agent pickup in the last week of the season is his 19th round pick. So he saw this guy even all the way back in March. Didi Gregorius in the 20th, who was when paired with DeYoung, that's an incredible pickup. You know, what did Didi do this year? Because he did miss a month or two.
Yeah, he missed a good chunk, but it's still great to get him 20. That's
20th
good
round.
value.
I'm telling you, for whatever reason, the 20th round is where, you know, championships are made. You know, your pick of Trey Mancini, this pick of Didi Gregorius. A couple of years ago when Aaron Judge was a rookie, guess who picked him in the 20th round? This
Right.
guy. You know, the 20th round, there's some sort of championship vortex in that round. So that's something to look at next year.
Yeah, and it's something to look forward to when we talk about in our other shows, because we're going to break down other finals that have occurred. So when we go through those teams and their drafts, we'll see where they made their championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That show's coming tomorrow, guys. Be on the lookout for that. Didi Gregorius this year, 238 average you don't like. Only played a half a season, so 82 games. 16 homers, 61 RBIs. When you extrapolate that out, that's a 30 and 100 season.
Yeah,
You know?
probably.
Yeah, like roughly. In the 20th round.
Especially in that ballpark most of the time.
Oh, yeah, especially a left-handed batter. CC Sabathia in the 21st round. Pat Neshek was a miss in the 22nd. Tyler White was awful in the 23rd. I remember talking a lot of shit at James Santangelo for starting him like week after week after week. Touki Toussaint was a nice pick in the 24th round. I think that kid is going to be good in a year or two. You know, I think that's one of those like a year too early type picks. And finally, he finishes it out. The second to last pick in the draft, Troy Tulowitzki. Rest in peace to that guy's career. Because that's that. Look, coming into the season, you know, you thought maybe this guy could have a resurgence, and from what I remember, he was having like a decent April before he got hurt. He only played 5 games. Well, never mind then. So yeah, I mean, if you're gonna miss in the last rounds. The one thing I want to hit on is the Eugenio Suarez and Jack Flaherty picks in rounds 4 and 5. When you look at that spot, Mike was at the turn picking second, so all he had between those two picks were Bobby. When you see who goes before Suarez and after Flaherty, it's kind of surprising. You know, a name like Daniel Murphy, a name like Blake Trinan, a name like Edwin Diaz. You know, disappointing seasons from guys go before Suarez. Adalberto Mondesi went the pick before Suarez in the 4th round. And then after Flaherty, Corbin, D. Gordon was taken in the 5th round. Mitch Haniger was taken in the 5th round.
Wow.
Jesus Aguilar was taken in the 5th round. Scooter Gennett was taken in the 5th round. Robinson.
Yeah, these are all guys that should be taken in that round going into the season. It's interesting how these are guys that barely are even going to think about on draft day. Just, you know, just a testament to how great Mike is, because when you're in that spot in the draft order, and you know you're not going to see a ton of guys for a while, to say, these are the 2 guys I'm going for, really ballsy with Jack Flaherty.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much with Suarez, because he's proven to be such a good hitter. They have a lot of bats going into Cincinnati. There was a lot of high praise there. You know, this guy hits a lot of bombs, so, you know, the ballpark, etc. So that one, you know, but even still, like, those to settle in and say those are my 2 guys, they're risky, but obviously incredible payoff.
Yeah. I mean, if you take a look at the pitchers going back toward that back half of the 3rd round all the way through the 4th round, before Jack Flaherty gets picked with the 2nd pick in the 5th round, we're talking about Carlos Carrasco, Steven Strasburg, James Paxton, Jameson Taillon, David Price, Miles Mikolas, and Zach Greinke. Those are the starting pitchers that go before Jack Flaherty. Other than Greinke and Steven Strasburg, that's a really bad run of pitchers.
Right.
You know, Paxton's hurt, Taillon misses the season, Price is a disaster.
Paxton's got it together towards the end, at least.
Yeah, I mean, he does have 15 wins. I didn't even know he had that many wins.
Yeah, no, he's had a pretty good season. He just bunched up a couple of crappy ones.
Gotcha. Yeah, Mike, great. I mean, if I look at this draft top to bottom, it's I would say top 7. It doesn't strike me as an, oh my God, this is a great draft. But those 2 picks of Suarez and Flaherty in 4 and 5 definitely stand out. He missed on a couple of top guys, especially Chris Davis in the 3rd round. But it's a solid playoff. Like, if I were to look at this team before the season, I'd say, yeah, that could be a playoff team.
Yeah.
It's what he's done from March until now that really made him a championship contender.
Absolutely. It's everything he did in between, for sure.
Yep. Benji, there's only one team that we haven't done that with yet. We haven't broken down your team. I think it's time.
Well, I guess we should too. All right. Well, let's just start with the pitching there.
Yeah.
It's a team again. It started 15 games under 500, so that's where a lot of these stats are lost here. Just in the first 2 weeks.
Mm.
Can even throw in a couple that I surrendered automatically to you in the semis, but everything's here, man. Innings pitched 6 and 18 in innings pitched.
Mm-hmm.
5 and 15 with 4 ties in wins. That's 10 under 500 in wins. 14 and 4 with 6. So just traded that one off and went 10 over in losses. 2 and 3 in complete games. 21 and 1 with 2 ties. Who is one of those ties to, and who is the one lost to, Joe?
This guy right here. This guy. Me.
That's right. Had my number in that category.
I'm the one in 21 and 1.
And nice.
Yes.
And this is where the big boys come to play. And you know the adjective there.
Play.
Okay, can you explain that really quickly, though, just so we don't sound like idiots very quickly?
So in 1996, WCW was invaded by Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, the Outsiders, forming the New World Order. And when Kevin Nash debuted on Monday Nitro, he's in the face of Eric Bischoff, who at the time was the face of the announce team. And Scott Hall says, there's a big guy behind you. And Nash says, so this is where the big boys play, huh? Well, look at the adjective. Play. We ain't here to play. The problem is play is a fucking verb. Like, and he sounds like a moron.
One of my favorites of all time. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So 21 and 1 in saves with 2 ties. 17 and 6 in home runs given up. 17 and 6 in walks given up. 1 tie as well. 6 and 17 in strikeouts. 11 and 13 in ERA. 13 and 11 in WHIP. 24 and 0 in relief appearances.
That's a hell of a run to do. It's incredibly, it's an attribute of yours that you were able to clean sweep a category this year and damn near clean sweep 2 of them. The trade-off.
I'm noticing here, by the way, that everything that doesn't have a tie only adds up to 24. They're not counting the 25th week with me against Mike.
Right.
So there's that. Also, one thing I just noticed is I kind of trade off on everything. I have, with wins and losses, home runs and walks given up, I was so good, but strikeouts and innings, I was so bad. 11 and 13 in ERA, 13 and 11 WHIP. So I kind of flip everything around, you know?
And what you're left with after you trade off wins and losses, trade off innings and homers, trade off walks and strikeouts, trade off ERA and WHIP, and your 500 or your 1 game under 500 in complete games, you know what you're left with?
A ton of saves and relief appearances.
45 and 1.
Yeah.
45 and 1 in saves and relief appearances. There it is, Benji. Like, there it is. It's right there. What about your batters?
For the batters, 13 and 11 in runs, 9 and 14 in doubles with 1 tie, 10 and 7 in triples with 7 ties, 6 and 15 in home runs, 10 and 13 in RBIs, 14 and 9 in stolen bases, 15 and 5 in walks, 19 and 5 in strikeouts, 14-6 in errors, 13-11 in batting average, 14-10 in on base.
That's a championship team. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
This actually surprised me that I was so over 500
Yeah.
in some of these.
The 6 and 5 in home runs, we kind of knew that. Your team didn't hit home runs.
6
You
and
were-
15, yeah.
Yeah, you were serviceable enough in doubles, 5 games under. Everything else was really good. Was really, really good. I got to give you a ton of credit. Let's take a look at this draft here, Benjamin. So you start off with Jose Ramirez. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, well, I feel great because when all is said and done, you think about all the trades and everything. Jose Ramirez went in that Chris Sale trade, and Chris Sale got me pretty close. And I remember he gets injured.
Mhm.
You and I are saying, wow, this is a big hit to your season. I go, nope, I'm in the playoffs, man. I'll figure it out. That's when I ended up getting Mikolas off waivers. But
Yep.
when you look at that trade, man, Jose Ramirez, Carlos Correa,
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Gausman,
And John Lester.
that's right. And
Yeah.
they went for Freeland, Chris Sale, Trinan, and Seth Lugo. Who was the most valuable piece for me in that deal?
It's Seth Lugo.
Right.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? He
Yeah.
was like almost a throw-in, wasn't he?
I would imagine so. Yeah, a setup guy for the Mets that, had a nice season last year, but certainly wasn't, the breakout bullpen star that he is this year.
No, he's a reliever with the SP
Yeah.
eligibility, and that'll help out. He had an unbelievable year, and then he becomes the closer.
Yeah.
He got me saves this week until finally I knew the deal with him. He had thrown his last pitch, and I could drop him on Friday, but my God, it's huge that I held on to this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Second round, you come back and grab the aforementioned Carlos Correa, so you're pairing your middle infielders. Go with Joey Votto in the third, and then your first reliever here is Kenley Jansen in the fourth, and Aroldis Chapman in the fifth. You get Masahiro Tanaka in the sixth, and for all the things we said about Tanaka this year, he's kind of been the anchor of your staff. He hasn't been great. His ERA is 4.5. He has 150 strikeouts, only 11 wins. But the one thing he is there every fifth day. 32 starts this year.
Right.
Yeah,
there was times to bench him
Sure.
that, I should have, and there were times to, start him, and when I benched him, a couple of times I got it right. I know he got that big complete game against Frank.
Mm-hmm.
There were some great moments, and of course the semifinals against you. I'm amazed I held on to him all year because he was certainly at some point very disappointing and certainly not up to the expectations of where I drafted him.
Yeah, when you look back on the season, you have to point to the series in London as a really down point that I think, if you were a knee-jerk reaction, you could have dropped him there. There were a few times during the season where Tanaka just got lit up. But at the end of the day, he's a guy who is going to take the mound every fifth day for you, get you anywhere from 4 to 7 innings, with the outlier being the complete game. You could just count on him for taking the ball every fifth day. And that's exactly what this team needed. That is exactly what your team needed. You needed a guy that you could rely on to go every fifth day for you. The seventh round is probably the pick of your draft here with Carlos Santana. You come back around with Raisel Iglesias in the eighth. Jose Peraza, you miss on in the ninth. Really disappointing season from that guy after coming off of a fairly decent year last year. 288 average last year, drops all the way down to 239 and loses his kind of loses his job along the way somewhere. John Lester in the 10th was part of that big trade we talked about. Miguel Cabrera in the 11th. This is the last year he's fantasy relevant, right? Like, I don't think he goes above round 22 next year.
Who are we talking about, Lester?
No, Miguel Cabrera.
Oh, yeah. No, you're probably right.
I
he batted 280 something this year. The batting average, he was able to compensate with his lack of power to an extent.
Yeah, but at this point, he's basically Joe Mauer with a little bit more power.
Right.
And he plays a position that you can go find 260 with 20 homers from G-Man Choi.
Right.
You're not. I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant next year. You missed on Brad Boxberger. You missed on Kevin Gausman. And so that's 11, 12, and 13 you miss on. Sean Newcomb, I think you drafted him expecting him to be a starter, and he actually ended up being a really nice bullpen piece for you.
Yeah, no, one of the stars of my season. I was sad when I let go of him because I just didn't assume he was necessarily going to pitch that much for the rest of the final week, so I had to go in a different direction. But a huge part of this team, I stuck with him when he was hurt, and the minors, all that, and he came back, and he was a huge part of the bullpen for the Braves. I would assume he makes the roster, being a lefty, and that was a really important pickup, actually.
Yep. 9 rounds after picking up your first guy you can count on every 5th day in Masahiro Tanaka, here's the other one. It's Kyle Gibson. Another guy who's going to take the mound every 5th day. 34 games he got into, 29 starts this year. Definitely became a one-inning type guy toward the end of the season, especially in the last, I'd say, 2 weeks, it looks like. Not a great ERA, but 13 wins, 160 strikeouts. Just another serviceable guy. And when you have this many relievers to pull down the ERA, you can afford to go with 2 guys whose ERA are 4.5 or higher.
Yeah, he was solid. He was solid enough for me. There was certain times where you just say, this is a good start at home, targets a pretty big field. This seems like a pretty competent offense day to day. So I felt like he could get the run support, get some wins, even if his pitching is somewhat pedestrian. Sometimes he'd throw out that gem. Sometimes he'd throw out those, quality start, if you will, 6-3 earned. Even maybe 5 and 3 or 4 earned could be enough.
Yeah, just serviceable enough. And again, a guy who's just going to eat up those innings and get you toward the minimum. Chase Anderson in the 16th, Steven Matz in the 17th, who you ended up trading for Domingo Santana at some point. And then you miss on a couple here with Brad Brock and Matt Kemp. But then the 20th round is where it's at with Trey Mancini. Scott Schebler is a miss in the 21st. Yoenis Cespedes is a disaster. Austin Hedges, not the greatest catcher. I think what was your strategy with catcher this year?
I just saw them all disappear on me.
Yeah.
I didn't even think that there was that many that were high value. I mean, I didn't think Contreras was going to be the star that he turned out to be. It just didn't seem like a position that was so full, and then all of a sudden they all disappeared. So I was kind of stuck, and I just wanted to stick to things that I liked, and things like Cespedes, just like picking players that I like.
Yeah.
And I had a feeling when I'm picking Austin Hedges that he's not going to be my catcher.
Yeah, I mean, and it looks like you probably went catcher by week, for most of the season.
Right.
Yeah. And then you finish out your draft with a couple of really good picks, Avisail Garcia and Jock Peterson to finish out the draft.
Wow.
I think if we're coming into the season and we're looking at this draft, the concerns are there. Is Jose Ramirez going to turn it around after his horrible second half last year? Is Carlos Correa going to stay healthy? Can Joey Votto return to form? There were some questions coming into this year with this team, and if I'm honest with you, Benji, I don't think I like this draft.
Right. Thanks for being honest, because I know you didn't.
Yeah, it's a case of your rotation is old. Tanaka and Lester and Gibson, and that's about it. Your bullpen is a strength, but it's not even as much of a strength as Ben Nisman teams in the past. I remember years where Ben would go hitter, and 5 relievers in the first 7 rounds. I at least can respect the fact that you kind of expanded those out this year. But, I mean, like I said it, man, I do not like this draft at all. And here you are as the 2019 champion. So what the fuck do I know?
Yeah, the team beat you. A lot of those guys beat you.
Yeah, it's absolutely a testament to how you formulated this team. And at the end of the day, it's a nice core, when you don't look at Jose Ramirez and Carlos Correa. You look at the core of this roster, which is Votto, Jansen, Chapman, Tanaka, Santana. Those 5 picks.
And Mancini.
And Mancini in the 20th. as you hit the lottery there. So you add those 6 guys together. That's the core of the team that you produced to go forward. Nice
right,
little
for
additions.
A draft day, and then the rest was just some hard work, just tons of hard work, I would say. Maybe lucky a little bit along the way. I mean, Buster Posey I stuck with probably longer than I needed to. I just felt loyal to a former Rookie of the Year, former MVP, potentially a Hall of Famer one day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, guy like Fultonavich, how long did I stick him on the team for? How long did I stick around with that guy? So there was some loyalty to certain guys that was huge. Kevin Newman, we talked about it. And then just savvy pickups, I guess, here and there, with grabbing a start here from this guy. I could go through it in my head, just all the crazy little pickups that I made along the way that just got me to this point. But I know that there's so many times where it was just like on Sunday, I needed to use my last couple moves on a position player that, how about the Sunday where I went to Jonathan Lucroy and he got me a triple, right, on a Sunday, to keep a winning streak, that streak that I had alive against Nick Holman. I mean, little things like that along the way. There were so many that, and it's just when Uncle Barry called me, when it was over yesterday, and he said to me, going into Monday, if I had the same roster, I would have lost against Mike. But because I wasn't going after Miguel Rojas, I wasn't going to necessarily go after Adam Frazier that day. There were pitchers that I certainly liked that you didn't, and I certainly didn't like the ones that you did.
Right.
So, it was so meaningful, just to acknowledge the fact that, and this is something that Mike Haber and I agreed on many years ago when we talked about the bigs, and you say, you know what? You can chalk up a little bit to luck, but when you beat someone in fantasy baseball, you beat them. Like, you used your brain, you used your moves, and you used your foresight and insight to do what you had to do to get more stats than the other guy. It was in free agency, it was on your roster, and you did it.
Yep. Yeah. And it's a grind. I don't like comparing fantasy baseball to fantasy football, but a lot of guys play both sports. I'm one of them. Fantasy football is a sprint. And if you don't get, one of my fantasy football teams right now is 0-4. My season's over. It's done. The best I can do before the playoffs is 9-4. I'm not going to win 9 in a row with this team. But a team like Ben Nisman's 2019 Bigs championship winning team can go, 20 games under 500?
Well, it was, at one point it was 15 under after going into week 3. That's when I made the Chris Sale deal.
Yeah. You can go 15 under 500 in the first 2 weeks and win a championship. That's why fantasy baseball is, to me, the king of fantasy sports. It is a grind. It is every day. It is roster moves so deep onto the bench that the average fantasy football fan who goes, yeah, I've got my lineup, I just sort of set that once a week, they can't fathom the amount of work you put into a team like this. And the one thing that everybody loves to say is that flags fly forever. Benny, you've got 2 flags now. You've got 2 championships, my friend. Welcome to the 2 Champions Club.
It's just amazing, man. I hope I described it as best as I could, but I didn't. The feeling I have, it's nirvana, man. It's something I can't even remember because in 2006 it was just running down to the basement to click on the computer to find out if I won or not. It wasn't so readily available, and it was just such a different game. And when we started making moves the day of in 2016, we really changed what the Bigs is. I mean, we really put a whole new meaning behind it. So
everything to me from 2016 on is even more special. It shows even more talent and skill. So this one to me means so much more to me than the first one in 2006, if you can believe it. Again, I can't show enough gratitude to the league, because when you were talking about how it's a grind, it's a marathon for the fantasy baseball season, it's especially that in the bigs. And when you win your back-to-back championships, when I win mine this year, it means that much more because of what you had to do to get it. The hard work, the scouting reports that you did, the day-to-day management, who to bench, who to play, who to use an add-on that, maybe might not help you this week, but could help you in a few weeks. But use your ad there and put them in the NA spot, put them in the DL spot, and hope it works out eventually. All the calculated risks, all the way to the playoffs, the number one seed, and we're going to have to go back to see how many number one seeds actually end up winning the championship. Definitely most of them don't.
Yeah.
So, just again, man, I'm so grateful for the moment, from all the congratulations and the support that my peers, the people that I respect so greatly, they know how much it means to me, because they know what an accomplishment it is, that they know how challenging it is, that they know that they would love to be in this spot where people are saying congratulations. I cannot thank you guys all enough. So you guys know who you are, and I appreciate it so much. The Bigs is the best. It's something that I created in 2003. I started playing 2001. So now all of a sudden, here we are, 2019, and it's never felt this special. Every year it becomes more special, but it's icing on the cake, for lack of a better term, because it means so much that something that I created holds so much strength and so much prowess for us, that it means so much. We all look forward to this every single season. Our fantasy baseball league, the best fantasy baseball league, maybe best fantasy league, ever. Who knows? But I'm just at this point to be here, man. And next year for me, it's a free year. I feel like I could just enjoy the new format and not go to the playoffs, because I don't know if I can ever reach the high that I'm on right now.
Benji, once again, from the bottom of my heart, for a lifelong friend of over 20 years, congratulations, man.
Thanks, buddy. You know I love you. How highly I think of you as a man, as a fantasy expert, as a sports guy. You're the best, man. So I appreciate it. It means so much coming from you.
Well, thank you, Benji. I appreciate that as well. Guys, when we come back, there were other matchups this week. We spent an hour and 45 talking about the championship match, as we fucking should. But there were other matchups this week. We're going to cover those. We're going to finish up the 2019 big season. We'll be back right after this.